There is a Ugandan proverb from the Kingdom of Buganda which says, "Agali awamu gegaluma ennyama." It means that it is the united teeth that can chew the meat. In part 1 of this series, we saw what happens when those teeth no longer bite together, when a board stops working as one. The 12th board of the National Social Security Fund of Uganda faced such a challenge. Between 2022 and 2023, internal tensions disrupted their ability to function as a cohesive governing body. The consequences were very serious, and a parliamentary committee was appointed to investigate a number of governance challenges in the National Social Security Fund, including the challenge of board dynamics. Hi, my name is Jimmy Walaviechi, and you're welcome to Corporate Governance Africa, where we seek to promote good governance through film. This is the second part of our series concerning board dynamics related to the National Social Security Fund. In this second part of our series on board dynamics, we continue drawing lessons from the experience of the National Social Security Fund. We focus on leadership, oversight, and what boards can do when difficult circumstances do arise. Board dynamics are the interactions between board members individually and collectively, and how these influence and are influenced by the wider stakeholder system. In simple terms, board dynamics are about how well board members work together and the ripple effect that their relationships have on the organization's governance, oversight, and direction. This subject matters deeply. It's very important because no matter how well designed a board structures are, they can fail if the human relationships within the board break down. In this video, we reflect on 3 additional insights drawn from the NSSF case: the role of the board chair where board dynamics are concerned, the role of shareholders and appointing authorities, and we consider the fact that sometimes coexistence is the only option when there is a difficult board member or board members. Before we dive into today's insights, let's quickly recall the context. The National Social Security Fund is Uganda's state-managed retirement scheme for private sector employees. Its board comprises 10 members, 9 are non-executive directors, and the managing director is an ex-officio member of the board. The directors are drawn from government ministries, workers' unions, employers, and the private sector. In 2023, a special parliamentary committee investigated governance issues within the 12th board of the National Social Security Fund. Among the findings was the allegation that one board member had repeatedly overstepped ethical and professional boundaries. For example, they requested for 1 billion Uganda shillings without legal basis. They attempted to influence the National Social Security Fund to purchase land which was tied to their personal interests. They threatened colleagues, and the board member also publicly criticized the board against agreed protocols. Despite calls for intervention from the board chair, the appointing authorities took no action. The result was reputational damage, internal dysfunction, and a breakdown in trust. And this highlighted serious weaknesses in the board dynamics of the National Social Security Fund. We move on now to discuss the 3 points that are the subject of this video. The board chair has an important role to play in matters related to board dynamics. As we saw in part 1, in the NSSF matter, the board chair sought the intervention of the minister when the board was dealing with a difficult board member. The Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development has the authority to appoint and remove directors under the National Social Security Fund Act. However, despite being informed of the misconduct, the minister did not take action. The minister stated that they were reluctant to interfere with appointments made by the Minister of Finance, and the Minister of Finance made the appointments before an amendment that empowered the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development to appoint and remove the directors. The lesson here is that the board chair must not only guide board discussions, but they must lead firmly when tensions arise, especially when the integrity of the board is under threat, as was the case with the National Social Security Fund Board. Shareholders or owners of an organization can play a significant role in addressing challenges in the arena of board dynamics. This is especially the case when the last resort is the removal of a board member. The National Social Security Fund is a state-owned organization. It is owned by the government of the Republic of Uganda. The line ministries are the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development and the Ministry of Finance. So the line ministries would play the function of the shareholder or the function of the owners of the National Social Security Fund. As we saw earlier, the board chair wrote to the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, but the minister did not make any intervention towards addressing the challenge of the difficulty amongst the board members. The minister's inaction led to reputational damage for the board, highlighting the importance of shareholders taking their designated role in the governance of an organization. Oversight mechanisms should not be passive. When those with authority fail to act, the entire system of governance can weaken. And so where the need arises, shareholders or owners of an organization should intervene and help boards to address challenges related to their board dynamics. Sometimes it may be necessary to learn to coexist with a difficult colleague on the board for the greater good of the organization. It may be that such tolerance can lead to a toxic environment, as evidenced from the complaints from the other board members and the management of the NSSF. However, as was the case with the NSSF board, where the director could not be easily removed, the board may consider exercising resilience as far as is reasonable in order to execute their supervisory role in the organization. Boards must adapt and maintain focus even in the face of unresolved tensions while still upholding their fiduciary duties to their organizations. As we close the second part of our series, the experience of the NSSF's 12th board leaves us with important lessons. We've seen that strong leadership from the board chair is very, very important, but it must be supported by active shareholders and appointing authorities when things go wrong. We've also seen that sometimes board members must tolerate difficult dynamics for the sake of stability, yet never at the cost of their fiduciary responsibilities and oversight of their organization. Earlier, we mentioned the proverb from the Kingdom of Uganda in Uganda, agali awamu ngegalume nyama. It's the united teeth that can chew the meat. Unity is what gives a board strength. The way in which the board members can gel in order to use their different skills and experiences for the good of the organization. But unity must be cultivated, it must be protected, and when necessary, it must be restored. So we leave you with 3 questions to consider. As a board member, do you help to create a culture where leadership can address conflict openly and firmly? When governance breaks down, do shareholders and appointing authorities act, or do they stay silent? And for the company secretary, are you tracking the patterns of conduct that may need intervention? And do you feel empowered to raise the red flag when needed? Ultimately, strong board dynamics don't just happen by accident. They are built, they are cultivated or nurtured, and they are defended by everyone at that table. In part 3 of this series, we will explore 2 more lessons from the NSSF experience. These focus on what boards can do before a crisis by carefully choosing the right people, that is, in the board appointment process, as well as after the crisis. What measures can a board take when there are challenges with their board dynamics? Here we shall look at using training and development to rebuild trust and to strengthen relationships amongst the board members.